The classroom was filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Some had scales that gleamed like metal. Others had fur that changed colors. A few had multiple arms or eyes that could see in directions humans could never imagine. In the back row, almost invisible among all these impressive beings, sat Katie Mills. She was small, even for a human. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her clothes were plain Academy standard issue. Nothing about her stood out. Nothing about her seemed special. Most days, the other students forgot she was even there. Katie preferred it that way. The Galactic Combat Academy was the most prestigious military school in known space. Warriors from every species came here to learn, to prove themselves, to become legends. The building itself was massive, with training grounds that could simulate any environment and classrooms equipped with technology that could teach 1,000 different fighting styles. Commander Vrix stood at the front of the room. He was Krathax, a species known across the galaxy as the greatest natural fighters. He stood nearly 3 meters tall. His body was covered in dark green scales that looked like they could stop bullets. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. His 3 eyes could track multiple opponents at once. Scars covered his body, each one a story of survival and victory. Combat is not about anger, Vrix said, his voice deep and rumbling. It is not about courage. Combat is about understanding. Understanding your opponent. Understanding yourself. Understanding the space between you. Katie wrote this down in her notebook. Her handwriting was neat and small. She filled pages with observations every class. Vrix paced back and forth, his 4 arms moving as he spoke. Tomorrow we begin practical demonstrations. Each of you will face me in the training circle. You will show me what your species has taught you about fighting. You will show me what you believe makes a warrior. The students around Katie began whispering excitedly. Facing Commander Vrix was considered a great honor. It was also considered a guaranteed defeat. No student in the past 5 years had lasted more than 30 seconds against him. Most lasted less than 20. A Vexlor named Kresh turned in his seat to look at Katie. The Vexlor were reptilian creatures, fast and vicious. They had sharp teeth and claws and tails that could strike like whips. Kresh's yellow eyes narrowed with amusement. The human is taking notes again, he said to his friends, loud enough for Katie to hear. What is the point? Humans have no claws, no armor, no poison, no speed. You are just soft meat pretending to be warriors. Katie looked up from her notebook. Her face showed no emotion. Maybe you're right, she said quietly. Kresh laughed. His friends laughed too. They turned back around, dismissing her completely. Katie returned to her notes. But she was not writing down what Vrix said. She was writing down how he moved. She noted that when he gestured with his upper right arm, his lower left arm always shifted to maintain balance. She noted that he always stepped with his left foot first when moving forward. She noted that his third eye blinked half a second after the other 2. She had been watching Commander Vrix for 3 months. Every class, every demonstration, every casual movement in the hallways. She had 17 pages of notes about him. Patterns of movement, habits, tells, small things that repeated. This was what humans did. This was what made them survivors. Earth was a dangerous planet. Humans were not the strongest creature there. They were not the fastest. They did not have claws or fangs or armor. But they had something else. They had the ability to watch, to learn, to remember, and to never give up. Ancient humans had hunted animals much larger and stronger than themselves. They did not do it by being faster. They did it by following the animal for days, learning its patterns, understanding its behavior, and then striking at the perfect moment with perfect knowledge. Katie's ancestors had survived ice ages and predators and disasters by being patient, by watching, by learning. That ability was still in her blood, in her brain, in the way she saw the world. Other species looked at Commander Vrix and saw an unbeatable opponent. Katie looked at Commander Vrix and saw patterns. She saw the tiny delays in his reactions. She saw the way he favored certain techniques. She saw the microscopic tells that happened before he moved. The class ended. Students filed out, still talking excitedly about tomorrow's demonstrations. Katie stayed in her seat, reviewing her notes. She added a few more observations from today's class. The way Vrix's scales reflected light differently when certain muscles tensed. The way his breathing changed when he was about to demonstrate a technique. Cadet Mills. Katie looked up. Commander Vrix stood over her desk. Up close, he was even more intimidating. One of his hands could probably wrap completely around her entire body. "Yes, Commander? You volunteer for tomorrow's demonstration?" His 3 eyes studied her curiously. "I do not know yet, Commander. You take many notes, more than any other student." There was no judgment in his voice, just observation. "I learn by writing things down," Katie said. Vrix's mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. "The human way. You do not have the natural gifts of other species, so you compensate with study. It is admirable. But in the training circle, notes will not help you." "No, Commander," Katie agreed. Vrix nodded and walked away. Katie watched him go. Even his casual walk had patterns. 3 steps, slight weight shift to the right. 3 more steps, shift to the left. A limp so small that no one else would notice it. An old injury, probably, compensated for so well that it barely mattered. But it was there. Katie added this to her notes. She gathered her things and left the classroom. The hallways were busy with students heading to training sessions or meals or study groups. None of them paid attention to the small human girl walking quietly through the crowd. That night, Katie sat in her small room and reviewed all 17 pages of her notes on Commander Vrix. She read them 3 times. She closed her eyes and visualized every movement she had recorded. She saw the patterns. She understood the rhythms. Tomorrow she would volunteer. Tomorrow, she would step into the training circle with the most feared combat instructor in the academy. Tomorrow, the quiet girl in the back row would show the galaxy something about humans that they had forgotten to fear. Patience. The training arena was packed. Word had spread through the academy that Commander Vrix would be demonstrating combat techniques against live opponents. Every student wanted to watch. The circular platform in the center of the room was 30 meters wide and surrounded by energy barriers that would contain any attacks. Observation decks rose up on all sides, filled with hundreds of cadets from every species imaginable. Katie sat in the upper deck, in her usual spot near the back. She had her notebook open, but she was not writing. She was watching. Commander Vrix entered the arena to loud cheers. He wore traditional Krathax combat armor, which was really just reinforced straps across his chest and legs. His species did not need much armor. Their scales were armor enough. He stretched his forearms, rolled his massive shoulders, and waited. "First volunteer," he called out. A thornback named Grexus stepped forward. The thornbacks were walking tanks, their bodies covered in thick crystalline armor that grew naturally from their skin. Grexus was confident. He activated his defensive plates and they extended outward, making him look even larger. The match began. Grexus charged forward with surprising speed for his size. His strategy was simple: use his armor to absorb any attack while landing one crushing blow. Vrix waited calmly. When Grexus came within range, Vrix moved. It was so fast that many students missed it. One arm deflected Grexus's attack. Another arm struck at a gap between armor plates. The third arm swept Grexus's legs. The fourth arm controlled his fall. Grexus hit the ground unconscious. The entire fight lasted 18 seconds. Medical staff rushed forward to help Grexus. He would be fine, just stunned. Vrix had pulled his strikes. This was training, not execution. The crowd cheered. This was why they came to watch Commander Vrix. He made it look easy. 5 more students volunteered. A Vexler named Srix used her species' famous speed, darting around the arena like lightning. She lasted 23 seconds before Vrix predicted her pattern and caught her mid-leap. A Quellan used ranged energy attacks, keeping distance. He lasted 19 seconds before Vrix closed the gap and ended it. Then a human male named Jake Torres volunteered. The crowd grew more interested. Humans were rare in the combat academy. Most people saw them as weak. Jake had a different strategy. He did not try to match Vrix's strength or speed. Instead, he moved unpredictably. He feinted left, attacked right, dropped low, rolled away. He used the environment, the size of the arena, his own smaller size as advantages. Katie watched carefully. Jake was good. He understood that humans could not win through direct confrontation. He lasted 31 seconds, longer than anyone else so far, but Vrix's experience won in the end. He adapted to Jake's unpredictability. He used his extra arms to cover multiple angles. Eventually, he found an opening and ended the match with a controlled strike. Vrix helped Jake up. The commander seemed pleased. "Humans," he said, his voice carrying across the arena. "Always creative. You think differently than other species. But creativity has limits against trained warriors. Jake nodded respectfully and left the platform, limping slightly but grinning. Lasting 31 seconds was something to be proud of. More students fought. Some lasted longer than others, but none came close to truly challenging Vrix. He was simply too experienced, too skilled, too physically superior. He was proving a point. That natural ability combined with decades of training created a fighter that cadets could not defeat. An hour passed. 20 students had tried. 20 students had lost. The crowd began to thin as students left for other classes or activities. Any others? Vrix called out. He was not even breathing hard. His species had incredible endurance. Silence filled the arena. Everyone who wanted to test themselves had already done so. Katie stood up. The movement was quiet, but a few students near her noticed. They watched as she made her way down from the upper deck toward the arena floor. More students noticed. Conversations stopped. By the time Katie reached the stairs leading to the platform, the entire arena was watching. The small human girl who never spoke, the one who sat in the back, the one everyone forgot about. She was volunteering. Kresh laughed from his seat in the middle deck. "This will be over in 5 seconds," he said to his friends. Katie walked across the platform toward Commander Vrix. The size difference was shocking. Vrix was nearly 3 times her height. His smallest arm was thicker than her leg. She looked like a child standing before a mountain, but her face showed no fear. "Just calm focus." Vrix looked down at her with his 3 eyes. "Cadet Katie Mills," he said. His voice was formal but not unkind. "You understand this is full contact sparring? I will control my strikes, but you will be hurt. You may be injured." "I understand, Commander," Katie said. Her voice was steady. "You may withdraw now without shame. No one expects you to face me." "I know," Katie said. "But I volunteer anyway." Vrix's mandibles moved slightly. "Respect, perhaps." "Very well. Take your position." Katie moved to the starting circle. Vrix moved to his. The referee, a floating drone, announced the rules. Standard combat protocols. Match ends when one fighter cannot continue or surrenders. "Begin when ready," the referee announced. Katie did not move. She simply stood there, feet shoulder-width apart, hands at her sides, watching Vrix with dark, calm eyes. The silence stretched. 10 seconds passed. 20. The crowd grew restless. Why was she not attacking? Why was she not moving? Vrix waited. He was patient. He had fought hundreds of opponents who tried to rush him in the opening seconds. He knew the value of patience. But Katie was not playing a waiting game. She was reading. She was watching. She was confirming everything she had learned from 3 months of observation. She saw Vrix's weight distribution. 65% on his left leg. She saw his breathing pattern. Deep breath every 8 seconds. She saw his eye movement. The third eye tracked her feet while the other 2 watched her center mass. Most importantly, she saw the tell. The tiny tell she had identified 3 weeks ago. When Vrix was about to move, his upper left arm twitched. Just barely. Just for a fraction of a second. But it was there. 30 seconds of silence. The crowd was murmuring now. What was happening? Why was nobody moving? Then Vrix's upper left arm twitched. Katie moved. What happened next would be studied in combat schools across the galaxy for years to come. Katie took 3 quick steps at an angle that seemed random. She was not charging straight at Vrix. She was not circling him. She moved at an angle that forced Vrix to rotate and reposition. That repositioning took time, just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Katie was inside his reach before his 4 arms could properly adjust. Her small size, which everyone saw as a weakness, meant she could move through spaces that larger fighters could not. She ducked under his upper right arm, stepped past his lower left, and her hand struck with precise force at the nerve cluster where his primary and secondary arms met his torso. It was a strike she had identified from watching his sparring matches. A weak point hidden beneath scales, not weak enough to injure him seriously, but sensitive enough to cause temporary numbness. Vrix's entire left side went numb. Both arms dropped. The crowd gasped, but Katie was already moving. She had practiced this combination in her mind 100 times. She knew Vrix's recovery pattern. She knew he would try to compensate with his right arms while his left side recovered. She knew he would pivot on his right leg and sweep with his left. She dropped low as his right arms came crashing toward where she had been. She rolled under the sweep. Her hand struck the back of his right knee. Another nerve point with every ounce of strength she had. Vrix stumbled. His right leg buckled slightly. The arena went completely silent. Commander Vrix had stumbled. The undefeated champion. The legendary warrior. He had stumbled. Vrix roared. The sound shook the energy barriers and made several students in the front rows cover their ears. It was a sound of surprise, anger, and something else. Respect, perhaps. He was hurt. Not badly, but his pride was wounded. More than that, his understanding of combat had just been challenged by a creature he had dismissed as weak. His left arms were already regaining feeling. The nerve strike was temporary. Katie had known it would be. She had maybe 10 more seconds before he recovered completely. 10 seconds against a warrior with thousands of years of species combat knowledge and decades of personal experience. Katie did not waste time thinking about the odds. Thinking would get her killed. She acted on instinct, on the patterns she had memorized, on the plan she had built over 3 months of patient observation. Vrix brought all 4 arms crashing down in a devastating area attack. It was a Krathax elimination pattern, designed to crush everything in a 3-meter radius. There was no dodging it, no blocking it. The only option was to not be there. Katie had seen him use this technique in his 7th demonstration match 3 weeks ago. She knew it was coming. She had already rolled clear before his arms finished their arc. She came up behind him slightly to his left in the blind spot created by the way his third eye tracked movement. She jumped. Her small size meant she weighed less, could change direction faster, could use his own bent-over posture as a ladder. Her hand found the ridge of his spine, pushed off, and her elbow came down hard on the nerve bundle at the base of his neck. It was the most vulnerable point she had identified, the place where scales were thinnest, where nerves clustered, where even a Krathax could be stunned if struck with enough precision. She put every ounce of her weight, every bit of her momentum, every particle of her strength into that single strike. Vrix went down. 300 kilograms of muscle, scale, and trained warrior instinct hit the training mat with a crash that echoed through the entire arena. Katie landed in a crouch nearby, breathing hard, her arm numb from the impact. She stayed ready, balanced, watching for movement. Vrix did not move for 3 seconds, then 4, then 5. The referee drone floated forward, scanning him. Commander Vrix is conscious but stunned. The match is concluded. Winner, Cadet Katie Mills. The arena exploded. Not with cheers, but with shocked noise. Students from every species were on their feet, talking, shouting, pointing. Some were arguing that it was a fluke. Others were replaying the footage on their personal devices, watching it again and again, trying to understand what they had just seen. Katie stood up slowly. Her legs were shaking. Adrenaline was fading, replaced by the reality of what she had just done. She had fought Commander Vrix. She had won. No, not won. She had studied Commander Vrix for 3 months and used that study to exploit patterns he did not know he had. That was different. Vrix groaned and pushed himself up on his arms. His 3 eyes were unfocused for a moment, then sharpened. He looked at Katie, and his mandibles spread in what was definitely a smile now. "Help your opponent up," he said. His voice was rough but amused. "It is tradition." Katie stepped forward and offered her hand. It was absurd. Her hand was tiny compared to his. But Vrix reached out and took it gently, and Katie helped pull him into a sitting position. "Good match, Commander," Katie said quietly. Vrix laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound. "Good match? Little human, that was a lesson. You just taught me something I should have learned 40 years ago." "What lesson, Commander?" Vrix looked at her with all 3 eyes focused completely on her face. "That I have been teaching combat wrong. I taught strength. I taught technique. I taught honor and courage and discipline. But I forgot to teach the foundation. I forgot to teach watching." He stood up, testing his limbs. Everything worked. The nerve strikes were already fading. He turned to face the crowd of students, his voice projecting across the arena. "You all saw what happened here. A human, the smallest and weakest species in this academy, defeated me. Do you know how she did it?" Silence. No one answered. "She watched me," Vrix continued. "For 3 months, she watched every movement I made. She studied my patterns. She identified my weaknesses. She learned everything about how I fight without me ever knowing she was doing it. And then she executed a perfect strategy based on that knowledge." He turned back to Katie. "How many students have you studied this way?" Katie hesitated. She did not want to admit this. It felt like confessing to something wrong. "All of them. she said finally. The crowd's noise increased. Students looked at each other nervously. Had this quiet human girl been watching them all? Learning their patterns? Could she defeat any of them the same way? Vrix's expression showed approval. Of course you have. Because that is what humans do. Your species did not become successful by being strong. You became successful by being smart, by being patient, by never stopping your observation of the world around you. He addressed the crowd again. I have been a warrior for 47 years. I have trained thousands of students. I thought I understood combat completely. Today, a human cadet showed me that I was arrogant. She showed me that observation is not just a tool, it is the foundation of all combat. Kresh, the Vexlor who had mocked Katie, stood up in the crowd. It was luck, he shouted. You were tired from 20 matches. She could not do it again. Katie turned to look at him. Her face was calm. I have been watching you too, Kresh. You overextend on your third strike combination. You favor your right side when you are tired. You have a tell before you use your tail strike. Your left shoulder drops exactly 4 centimeters. Kresh's confident expression faltered. You are lying. Test me, Katie said simply. The arena went quiet. Everyone looked at Kresh. He looked at Katie, and for the first time fear showed in his yellow eyes. Because he knew. He knew that she was not lying. He knew that she had been watching him, studying him, learning him, and he knew that if he stepped onto that platform she would prove it. Kresh sat down without another word. Vrix's mandibles spread wider. This is what I mean. Combat begins long before the fight. It begins with study, with observation, with understanding. The warrior who knows their opponent has already won half the battle. He placed one massive hand on Katie's shoulder, gentle despite its size. From today I will be restructuring my teaching methods. Observation and analysis will be given equal weight to physical training. If a human with no natural weapons can defeat me through study alone, then I have been teaching wrong for decades. The crowd was processing this. The greatest combat instructor in the academy had just admitted he was wrong, had just been defeated, had just elevated a human cadet to the level of teacher. Katie felt overwhelmed. She had not wanted this attention. She had just wanted to test herself, to see if her observations were correct. Now everyone was staring at her. Everyone would want to talk to her, ask her questions, study how she studied. Commander, she said quietly. I did not mean to embarrass you. Vrix laughed again. Embarrass me? Little human, you honored me. You showed me that I can still learn. That I am not too old to grow. That is the greatest gift a student can give a teacher. He turned her to face the crowd. Cadet Katie Mills, the human who watches. Remember this day. Remember that victory does not always come from strength. Sometimes it comes from patience. The crowd began to cheer. Not mocking cheers, but real ones. Respect was growing, spreading through the students like fire. Katie stood there, uncomfortable with the attention, but accepting it. She had changed something today. Not just in the academy, but in how these species viewed humans. They had seen humans as weak, as prey animals, as creatures playing at being warriors. Now they saw something else. They saw predators of a different kind, patient predators, watching predators, the kind that studied you for months before striking with perfect precision. It was, some of them were beginning to realize, far more frightening than simple strength. The footage went viral within hours. Students recorded the match on their personal devices and shared it across the Galactic network. By morning, every military academy, warrior guild, and combat school in known space had seen it. The tiny human girl who defeated Commander Vrix without throwing a single power strike. Katie woke up to find her academy message inbox flooded with thousands of communications. Interview requests from military channels. Questions from combat researchers. Challenge requests from warriors across the galaxy who wanted to prove her victory was luck. Marriage proposals from species that valued combat prowess. Threats from others who saw her victory as an insult to warrior culture. She deleted all of them and went to class. But class was different now. When she entered the combat theory room, conversations stopped. Every student turned to look at her. The seat she usually took in the back row was now surrounded by other students who wanted to sit near her. Katie hesitated at the door. This was not what she wanted. She just wanted to learn and be left alone. Cadet Mills. Commander Vrix's voice carried across the room. Your assigned seat is now at the front, here. He gestured to a desk directly in front of his teaching podium. Katie walked to the front, feeling every eye on her. She sat down and opened her notebook, trying to ignore the attention. Brix began the lesson. Yesterday, something important happened. Cadet Mills demonstrated a principle that I have been teaching wrong for my entire career. Combat is not just about the fight. It is about everything that happens before the fight. He pulled up footage of Katie's match on the classroom display. Watch this carefully. Count how many times Cadet Mills throws a strike intended to cause serious damage. The students watched. The footage played through twice. 0, Brick said. She throws 0 power strikes. Every attack she makes is precise, targeted at nerve clusters and weak points. She is not trying to overpower me. She is trying to disable me. There is a difference, he pointed at Katie. She understood something fundamental. She could not win through strength. She could not win through speed. Her only path to victory was through knowledge. So she spent 3 months acquiring that knowledge. A student raised their hand. It was a Quellon named Brix. But Commander, 3 months is too long. In real combat, you do not get 3 months to study your opponent. True, Brix agreed. But consider this. After studying me for 3 months, Cadet Mills can now recognize combat patterns much faster. The skill of observation improves with practice. What took her 3 months with me might take 3 weeks with another opponent. Then 3 days. Then 3 hours. He let that sink in. This is a skill like any other. It develops. Humans have been developing this skill for millions of years on their planet. They hunted prey by tracking it for days, learning its patterns, then striking at the perfect moment. That ability is built into their brains. Katie felt uncomfortable being discussed like this, but Vrix continued. From today, observation training will be added to this curriculum. You will learn to watch your opponents, to identify patterns, to find weaknesses. Because if a human with no natural weapons can defeat me through observation alone, then observation is a weapon we have been ignoring. After class, students crowded around Katie. They had questions. So many questions. How did you know where to strike? Can you teach me to see patterns like that? Did you really study all of us? Katie tried to answer, but the crowd was overwhelming. A large hand settled on her shoulder. Vrix, Cadet Mills has her next class to attend, he said firmly. The crowd parted. As Katie walked through the hallways, she noticed something had changed. Students no longer ignored her. They watched her, not with hostility exactly, but with wariness, like prey animals aware that a predator is near. It made her sad. She had not wanted to be feared. She had just wanted to prove that humans belonged in the combat academy. But the attention was not all negative. In her next class, Advanced Combat Strategy, 3 students asked if they could be her study partners. In the training facility, a Krathax cadet asked her to analyze his fighting style and point out weaknesses. Katie found herself suddenly in demand as a consultant, an advisor, an analyst. It was exhausting for someone who preferred solitude. That evening, she was walking back to her dormitory when Kresh stepped out from a side corridor, blocking her path. The Vexler's expression was hard to read. You made me look like a fool, he said. Katie stopped. That was not my intention, but you did it anyway. You called out my patterns in front of everyone. Now students mock me. They say the human girl knows me better than I know myself. I'm sorry, Katie said. I should not have done that. No. Kresh stepped closer. You should have. Because you were right. Everything you said about my fighting style was correct. My instructors never told me these things. My training partners never noticed. But you did. He was quiet for a moment. I want you to teach me. I want to learn to see the way you see. Katie blinked in surprise. You want me to teach you? Yes, I came to this academy to become a better warrior. You showed me that I have been blind. I want to learn to watch. Katie thought about this. Teaching one student was different from the attention she had been getting all day. This was personal, honest. Okay, she said. Meet me in training room 7 tomorrow at 6 in the morning. Bring a notebook. Kresh's expression lightened. Thank you. He walked away, leaving Katie alone in the corridor. Over the next week, more students approached her. Not to challenge her, not to mock her, to learn from her. She started holding informal study sessions, teaching small groups how to observe combat footage, how to identify patterns, how to catalog movements. The sessions grew. 5 students became 10. 10 became 20. Soon she needed to book larger classrooms. Commander Vrix watched this development with satisfaction. Katie was teaching the students something he could not because he did not understand observation, but because he had never needed to rely on it the way humans did. For him, observation was a tool. For Katie, it was survival, but not everyone was happy about Katie's rising influence. In the galaxy, reputation meant everything. Warriors built their lives on being respected, feared, admired. Katie had humiliated one of the most respected warriors in known space. Some saw this as a challenge that needed to be answered. A message arrived in Katie's inbox. It was from a Krathax warrior named Drex, a famous arena fighter who had retired from professional combat to train at the academy. The message was simple. You defeated Vrix through trickery. Face me in honorable combat and prove your worth, or admit you are a fraud. Katie read the message 3 times. She knew who Drex was. Everyone did. He had won the Galactic Combat Championship 4 years in a row. He was younger than Vrix, faster, and some said even more skilled. She could refuse. She could ignore the challenge. But that would make things worse. The whispers would spread that she was afraid, that her victory was luck, that she would not face a real opponent. Katie closed her eyes and thought about her options. Drex would be harder to defeat than Vrix. She had not studied him for 3 months. She had maybe 2 weeks of footage to analyze, and all of it was from professional fights, not training sessions. The patterns would be different, but she had learned something from defeating Vrix. She had learned that confidence mattered. That sometimes the act of accepting a challenge changed how others saw you. Katie typed a response. I accept. 2 weeks from today. Standard Academy rules. She sent the message and immediately felt her stomach drop. What had she just done? Drex would destroy her. This was not a training match with pulled strikes. This was an honor challenge. Drex would not hold back. She needed to prepare. She needed to study. She needed to become better at observation than she had ever been before. Katie opened her notebook and began making a list of everything she needed to learn about Drex in 2 weeks. The quiet girl in the back row was about to face her greatest test. Katie spent every free moment of the next 2 weeks studying Drex. She watched every fight recording she could find. Professional matches, training footage, even casual sparring sessions that other students had captured. She filled 4 notebooks with observations. Drex was different from Vrix in important ways. Vrix was experienced and methodical, relying on decades of knowledge to predict opponents. Drex was younger and more aggressive. He overwhelmed opponents with speed and power. His technique was flawless, his movements efficient. He had fewer patterns because he varied his approach deliberately. This made him harder to predict. Much harder. Katie also learned about Drex's personality. He valued honor above everything. He believed combat was sacred. To him, Katie's defeat of Vrix was dishonorable because she had used tricks instead of warrior skill. He wanted to prove that real combat was about strength and technique, not watching from the shadows. The challenge was scheduled for the main arena on Saturday evening. By Wednesday, the entire academy knew about it. Students talked about nothing else. Would Katie pull off another miracle? Or would Drex prove that her victory over Vrix was luck? Betting pools formed. Most students bet on Drex. The odds were 10 to 1 against Katie. A few students, mostly humans and those who had attended her study sessions, bet on her. But even they admitted it seemed impossible. Katie's study sessions continued, but they were different now. Students asked her about the upcoming fight. They wanted to know her strategy. She told them she did not have one yet. This was partially true. She had ideas, observations, possible approaches, but no concrete plan. Drex was too adaptable for the strategy that had worked against Vrix. Commander Vrix called her to his office on Thursday. Sit, he said, gesturing to a chair. Katie sat. The office was decorated with weapons from Vrix's military career. Swords, staffs, and things Katie could not identify. All of them showed use. Vrix was not a collector. He was a warrior who kept the tools of his trade. You accepted Drex's challenge, Vrix said. It was not a question. Yes, Commander, why? You could have refused. No one would have judged you poorly for declining to fight a professional champion. Katie thought about how to answer, because refusing would have made things worse. People would say I was afraid, that my victory over you was luck. I needed to accept to prove otherwise. Vrix nodded slowly. That is warrior thinking. You understand reputation now. Good. He leaned back in his chair. But understanding reputation and surviving Drex are different things. He will not hold back like I did. He will hurt you badly. I know. Do you know how badly? Vrix's three eyes focused on her. Drex fights to win. He will break bones. He will cause injuries that take weeks to heal. Medical technology can fix most damage, but the pain will be real. Are you prepared for that? Katie's hands were shaking slightly. She hid them in her lap. I have to be. No, Vrix said firmly. You do not have to be. You can withdraw. You have already proven humans are capable fighters. No one expects you to defeat a champion. But I expect it of myself, Katie said quietly. Humans do not give up. It is what we do. We keep trying even when we should quit. It is foolish maybe, but it is who we are. Vrix was quiet for a long moment. I will tell you something about Drex. He is a better fighter than I am. Faster, stronger, more technically skilled. But he has a weakness. Katie looked up sharply. What weakness? Pride. He believes so strongly in honorable combat that he refuses to adapt. He thinks there is a right way to fight and a wrong way. If you can make him angry, make him believe you are fighting dishonorably, he will make mistakes. You want me to cheat? No. I want you to make him think you are cheating while following all the rules. Frustrate him. Confuse him. Make him so focused on proving his way is correct that he forgets to watch what you are actually doing. Katie considered this. It was risky. Making Drex angry might make him fight harder, not worse. But it was also the only advantage she had. She could not match his skill or strength. She needed to make the fight about something else. Thank you, Commander. Vrix nodded. One more thing. Remember that losing is not failure. You have already changed this academy. Students now understand that observation is important. That is enough. Do not die for pride. I will not die, Katie said. She tried to sound confident. She was not sure she succeeded. Saturday arrived too quickly. Katie spent the morning reviewing her notes one final time. She visualized the fight, imagined different scenarios, planned responses, but she knew that no amount of planning could prepare her for the real thing. The arena was more crowded than it had been for her match with Vrix. Students from other academies had traveled to watch. Military observers were in attendance. Even some civilian combat enthusiasts had gained access. The observation decks were packed, standing room only. Katie arrived early and sat in a preparation room trying to calm her breathing. Her hands would not stop shaking. She was terrified. A knock on the door. Commander Vrix entered, along with Jake Torres, the human student who had fought Vrix in the demonstrations. We came to wish you luck, Jake said. Also to tell you that 20 humans from Earth Colony 6 traveled here to watch. We are all supporting you. Katie felt tears threatening. She pushed them back. Thank you. One more thing, Vrix said. He held out a small device. This is a neural stabilizer. It will help keep your hands steady. It is legal for combat use. Katie took it gratefully. The device attached to her wrist like a bracelet. Within seconds, her hands stopped shaking. Remember, Vrix said. Watch him. Learn him, adapt, that is your advantage. They left her alone. Katie closed her eyes and focused on her breathing. In and out. Steady. Calm. She thought about her ancestors on Earth. Humans who had faced animals much larger and more dangerous than themselves. Humans who had survived ice ages and disasters. Humans who never gave up. She could do this. Maybe not win, but survive. That was enough. The announcement came through the speakers. Cadet Katie Mills, please report to the arena. Katie stood. She walked through the corridors toward the arena entrance. The noise of the crowd grew louder with each step. When she emerged into the arena, the sound was overwhelming. Thousands of beings cheering, shouting, watching. She walked to the platform. Drex was already there. He was smaller than Vrix, but more heavily muscled. His scales were lighter colored, almost silver. His forearms showed the kind of definition that came from constant training. He wore minimal armor, just like Vrix. His three eyes watched her with cold calculation. Human, he said. His voice was hard. You should have declined this challenge. What you did to Commander Vrix was dishonorable. I will show you what real combat looks like. Katie said nothing. She took her position in the starting circle. The referee drone floated between them. Standard combat rules. Match ends when one fighter surrenders, is unconscious, or is unable to continue. Medical staff are standing by. Fighters ready? Katie nodded. Drex nodded. Begin. Drex moved instantly. No waiting, no testing. He closed the distance in 2 massive steps. all forearms striking in a combination that covered every angle of escape. Katie had been expecting this. She had watched Drex's opening moves in 17 different fights. He always started aggressively, trying to end matches quickly. She dropped and rolled, not away but toward him, under his strikes. It was the last thing he expected. She came up inside his guard and struck at his knee. Not hard enough to damage, just enough to test his reaction time. Fast. He pivoted and kicked, forcing her back. They separated. The crowd roared. Drex's eyes narrowed. "You are quick, but speed will not save you." Katie still said nothing. She was watching. Learning. His balance shifted slightly after the pivot. His breathing was controlled, but she could see the pattern. 2 quick breaths, 1 deep breath, repeat. Drex attacked again. This time he was more careful, more controlled. He used his reach advantage, keeping her at distance. His strikes were powerful but measured. Katie defended barely. She was not trying to win yet. She was gathering data. How did he adjust? What patterns emerged when he adapted? A strike got through her guard. Drex's fist hit her shoulder with tremendous force. Katie felt something crack. Pain exploded through her arm. She rolled away, breathing hard. Her left arm was injured, not broken completely, but damaged. She could barely lift it. Drex stood tall. Yield. There is no shame in accepting defeat from a superior warrior. Katie looked at him. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, but it was there. Is something funny, human? I just realized something, Katie said. You fight exactly like your training videos. No variation. You trust your technique so completely that you do not adapt. That is your weakness. Drex's expression darkened. My technique needs no adaptation. It is perfect. Then prove it, Katie said. She attacked. Katie's attack was not designed to win. It was designed to frustrate. She moved in patterns that made no sense from a traditional combat perspective. She feinted left but moved right. She attacked high, then dropped low. She wasted energy on strikes that had no chance of landing. To a trained warrior like Drex, it looked like desperation, like someone who did not know proper technique. It looked dishonorable. You fight like an amateur, Drex growled, swatting aside her attacks. Did the academy teach you nothing? Katie said nothing. She kept moving, kept attacking in her strange, inefficient patterns, and she kept watching. There. Drex shifted his weight before every counter-strike, always to his right leg. It was tiny, unconscious, but it was there. There. His third eye blinked 1 second before he used his lower arms. A neural timing pattern probably impossible for him to control. There. When he got frustrated, his breathing changed. 3 quick breaths instead of 2. Katie was building a map of Drex in her mind. Not just his technique, which she had studied for weeks, but his reactions. His adaptations. The things he did without thinking. Drex caught her with another strike. This one hit her ribs. Katie felt bones crack. She fell to the mat, gasping. Blood filled her mouth. The crowd was roaring. Many were calling for her to surrender. The medical scanners were showing dangerous injury levels. Katie pushed herself up on her good arm. Her left arm was useless now. Her ribs screamed with pain. She could not take many more hits. Yield, Drex said. There was no mockery in his voice now. Just honest advice. You fought bravely. You have nothing more to prove. Katie stood shakily. She spat blood onto the mat. One more exchange, she said. Her voice was rough. Give me one more exchange, then I will yield if you want. Drex nodded. He respected courage, even foolish courage. One more. Then you rest. Katie adjusted her stance. She had what she needed. She understood Drex now. Not perfectly, but enough. The question was whether her injured body could execute what her mind had planned. Drex approached carefully. He was being merciful now, planning to end this quickly and cleanly without causing more damage. That mercy was his mistake. Katie exploded forward, not with her usual strange movements, but with direct, efficient technique. She finally fought the way Drex expected, and the sudden change confused him for a critical half-second. She saw his weight shift to his right leg. She saw his third eye blink. She saw his breathing pattern change to 3 quick breaths. Her right hand struck his right knee, not the left like before. The unexpected angle made him hesitate. His counter-strike was delayed by milliseconds. Katie used those milliseconds. She ducked under his arms, stepped past his defensive position, and drove her good elbow into the nerve cluster at his lower spine. The same type of target she had used on Vrix, but in a different location. Drex's lower body went numb. Both legs locked up, he did not fall. He was too strong, too trained to fall from that alone. But he could not move his legs properly, could not adjust his stance. Katie's kick swept his locked legs. Drex toppled. 300 kilograms of champion warrior hit the mat hard. The arena went silent. Again, just like with Vrix. The impossible had happened again. But Drex was not stunned like Vrix had been. He was angry. His upper arms pushed him up even with his lower body non-responsive. He grabbed for Katie with rage in all three eyes. "Illegal strike," he roared. "Targeting the spine is illegal." The referee drone scanned Katie's last strike. Strike was legal. Nerve cluster attack, non-lethal, temporary paralysis. Within regulations. Katie stumbled backward out of Drex's reach. She was barely standing. The pain from her injuries was overwhelming. Her vision was blurring. "You dishonor combat," Drex shouted. He was dragging himself forward with his arms, his legs still paralyzed. "You use tricks. You refuse to fight with honor." "I fight to win," Katie said. Her voice was weak. "Just like you do." "I just use different tools." "Tools?" Drex's voice was full of disgust. "Trickery, deception, prey animal tactics." "Yes," Katie said. She sat down heavily on the mat, unable to stand anymore. "Prey animal tactics. Because humans were prey animals once. We were hunted by things bigger and stronger and faster than us. We survived by being smarter. By watching. By learning. By never giving up." She looked at Drex, who had stopped advancing. His legs were starting to respond again. Soon he would be able to stand. Soon he could finish the fight. "You call it dishonorable," Katie continued. "But it is how my species survived. We could not beat predators in direct combat, so we studied them. We learned their patterns. We found their weaknesses. We used every advantage we could find. That is not dishonorable. That is survival." Drex was quiet. His breathing had calmed. He was listening. "You are a better fighter than me," Katie said. "Stronger, faster, more skilled. But I spent 2 weeks learning everything about you. Every pattern, every tell, every habit. I earned this knowledge through study. That is my technique. That is human technique." The arena was completely silent. Everyone was listening now. Commander Vrix understood this, Katie said. He understood that he taught combat too narrowly. That focusing only on strength and technique misses something important. Combat begins before the fight. It begins with understanding your opponent. Drex's legs were working now. He stood slowly, testing his balance. He could finish this. Katie was injured, barely conscious, unable to defend herself. He looked down at her. "You compare yourself to prey, but you are wrong. Prey runs away. You attacked me. You keep attacking even when you should surrender. That is not prey behavior." Katie smiled slightly. Blood stained her teeth. "Humans stopped being prey a long time ago. We became predators, just a different kind of predator." Drex extended his hand. "Stand." Katie took his hand with her good arm. He pulled her to her feet gently. "I yield," Katie said. "You win. I cannot continue." Drex nodded. But before the referee could announce the victor, Drex spoke loudly to the crowd. This human fought with honor. Not traditional honor, but honor nonetheless. She used every tool available to her. She refused to surrender. She earned her victory against Commander Vrix through study and dedication. "I declare this match a draw." The crowd erupted in noise. A draw? That was almost unheard of in challenge matches. The referee drone was confused. Clarification requested. Cadet Mills yielded. "Victory goes to Champion Drex." "I reject that victory," Drex said firmly. "She paralyzed my legs. She defeated my technique with her knowledge. The only reason she yields is because I injured her body. If we were both healthy, the match would continue. Therefore, a draw is appropriate." Katie stared at him in shock. "You do not have to do this." "Yes, I do," Drex said. "Because you taught me something important. I was wrong. Combat is not just about technique. It is about everything you bring to the fight. Your knowledge is a weapon as real as my strength. I was arrogant to dismiss that." He turned to the crowd. "Let it be known that humans are true warriors. They fight differently than we do, but that does not make them less honorable. They simply understand something we forgot. That the mind is the greatest weapon." Medical staff rushed onto the platform. They carefully loaded Katie onto a stretcher. As they carried her away, students from every species began chanting her name. "Katie, Katie, Katie." She closed her eyes. exhausted and in pain, but something warm spread through her chest. Pride, maybe, or relief. She had not won exactly, but she had proven what she needed to prove. Humans belonged here, not despite being different, but because they were different. 3 weeks later, Katie was recovered enough to return to classes. Her arm was healed. Her ribs were mended. The neural stabilizer had been replaced by her own steady hands. The academy had changed. Observation training was now mandatory in all combat courses. Students spent as much time analyzing footage as they did sparring. The curriculum emphasized that physical training and mental training were equally important. Commander Vrix asked Katie to teach a regular course. Introduction to Combat Analysis. She agreed, though she insisted on keeping it small. 20 students maximum. Drex visited her classroom one day. He sat in the back row in the seat Katie used to occupy. He took notes throughout her entire lecture. After class, he approached her desk. "I am attending your course. I hope that is acceptable." "Of course," Katie said. "Why, though?" "You are a champion. What can I teach you?" "Humility," Drex said simply. "You defeated me through preparation and study. I want to learn those skills. I want to become a better warrior, and that means learning from all sources, even prey animals who became predators." He said the last part with a small smile. It was not mockery. It was respect. Katie smiled back. Humans prefer the term persistent observers. I will remember that. Over the next year, Katie's reputation grew, not as a fighter, but as a teacher and analyst. Students sought her guidance. Military officers asked her to analyze their combat footage. Other academies requested her curriculum materials. But Katie remained the same quiet person she had always been. She still sat in the back of rooms when she could. She still took detailed notes. She still watched everyone and everything, cataloging patterns and learning continuously, because that was what humans did. They watched, they learned, they adapted, and they never ever gave up. The galaxy was still learning what that meant, what it meant to have a species that combined persistence with intelligence, that valued knowledge,